Yes, so I'm sitting here with Mark, my teacher, and Mark has been my spiritual teacher for like maybe when was it, Mark? 16 or 17,
Mm.
27, 16,
Yeah, that
16?
sounds about right. Yep.
Yeah, 8 years, November. And Mark has been the one that has taught me about how to ground in the body and sense spirituality in the body, and also for me a like many missing links that I have been missed in
Mm.
my spiritual awakening. And today is, I can introduce you in so many ways. So this was the one. And it has become life changing for both me and Johnny to have this perspective. That is what I hear you say. Somewhat is like ancient wisdom coming forth, but there's also some new stuff coming forth in the Dharma.
Yes.
And for me personally, I have never dived, not in this life, dived into or heard teachers talk about the body the way and the profound importance of the body. So this is why I'm doing a course inspired by your teaching, and this is also why we do this interview to not just have my, whatever that is, experience, but your foundation around it. And I thought there was something else I wanted to say, but I'm doing a course where we are studying what Mark calls, and I don't know if I said your name, Mark. This is Mark. I'm
Mm.
Linda.
Mm.
And where we are studying dimensions of the body, and with dimensions of the body, it's like what is awakening in the body as we awake to our true nature, right? Would that
Mhm.
be fair to say?
Mhm. Yes.
Okay, so what I find funny is, or no, not funny, but good funny is that we talked about four dimension, and the course I'm doing is four modules and we're studying these dimensions of the separated into four modules. But you talked about you have already you have sub dimension, and I was very interested the other day. We talked
Mm.
about hearing about that, of course. So just feel free to, dive deeper into more than four.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm also inclined to say, I was thinking about that the other day. This is becoming a very long introduction,
Mm.
a 15-minute long introduction. You said the first
Mm.
time I was on your webinar, you said not most, but a lot of what you were teaching and experience was also your insights from Karen, your wife, and your collaboration, right?
Mhm. Yes.
So that's like what I just want to say to those who are listening to them, that this is also what's I understand from you and Mark that is coming here. This is your
Yes.
your both of your lived experience, I guess.
That's right. Very much so. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the partnership in that.
Yes.
Mhm.
So where do we start? Where did we agree to start?
I think maybe with a talking about sharing why, how it came about, maybe that I developed this
Mm, mm, mm,
perspective.
mm.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The idea of, yeah, it was something
Yes.
like that. Yes, I
Yeah.
remember.
Part of it for me came from just noticing that there were different ideas about the body, different, I mean, even just looking at different, philosophies and or modern psychology or ancient spiritual traditions and various points of view about the body and noticing that ultimately in my own experience some of it made sense and fit with my experience, and it wasn't just like one point of view. It seemed like there were different aspects, different ways that you could experience the body.
Mm,
And so I began to sort of kind of organically just over time notice that several different points of view all seem to be true at the same time. And like,
mm,
how could that be? And how do they fit together? So instead of kind of finding myself in one camp or another where I believe that, this is what the body is or this is what the body is. And sometimes they even seem kind of contradictory or opposing
Yes.
points of view. I kind of found myself agreeing with several points of view, which also kind of changes if you put them all together, kind of tweaks them so that then a certain point of view starts to take on a certain flavor where it's not just that point of view, it's part of a larger
Mm.
reality.
Yeah. And then
So that's
integratedness too, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so part of it definitely came from noticing that in terms of the way other people were talking about the body, but also in terms of my own experience and as you said, my wife's too, and other people that I've talked to, just noticing that people were in a very grounded, experiential way, having different kinds of experiences of the body.
But
And
Mark, when you say that, are you then saying just spontaneous experiences and
mhm,
or like meditative and like reading something and then it sort of pops up, intuitively, all of the above or
yes,
like
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Exactly. You know what? I remember, for instance, before I was really knowledgeable or interested in spirituality, I was probably about 10 years old. And one day I was walking to school and I was walking up a long hill, a hill I would always walk up going to school. Suddenly, this energy awakened in my body and I just started running with joy. It just felt like effortless energy. I just ran up the hill
Yes,
with all this grace and effortlessness and spontaneous energy. And it was just, it felt like it didn't come from someplace else. It was like awakened in my body. It just was,
yes,
and if I look back, I would say, I think that's just a dimension of what the body is
yes.
that type of energy. And what
I
was that?
recognize that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so if there are people that do specific practices just to look for energy like that, to discover it in the body and encourage it to
Mm,
bring it out.
mm.
Sometimes it just shows up spontaneously, like in that experience. So, yeah.
And when you said that, I remember I saw a woman who talked about how she called it fluid movement. And I could see that she could
Mm,
sense how she said that when you start to move, all of a sudden it's effortless.
mm,
Like it
yes.
sounded really deep, really esoteric. It's like she found something deeper in the body where you don't move, you don't move by muscle, right? It's just
Right.
energy. It's not muscle. It's not like you're building strength and then you're doing it, right? It's
Right.
just right. It's fluid. And she
Yeah.
talked about that, and I was like, I experienced that when I was younger, like 20
Mm,
something, where over a couple of days there was this many experiences, but one of it was the effortlessness in moving. And
mm,
it was very different to what I've experienced, very heavy,
mm,
drinking and very heavy body. And then
mm,
it's like that was radical. So maybe it's something
mm.
like that. The
Absolutely.
right, a dimension of the body where you effortlessly move.
Right. Yes. And I think even in modern, like sports literature, especially like running, people talk about getting into like runner's high or the flow
Yeah,
state
it
or
must be that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that kind of thing. And I think that's just something that's does happen to people, just even if they're got the effort thing going, like they're a jogger or a runner
Mm-hmm.
and they're working out, but
Mm-mm.
then suddenly they find themselves in a state where it's just flowing effortlessly.
Mm.
And
And
yeah,
it is
so it's
hard. Yeah.
you know Uh, and then, of course, it turns into that there's situations where people get very advanced in that ability. So there, in Tibet, it's known that there are techniques that are developed because in ancient Tibet, just as anywhere else in the world, there was no way to get around except on walk or horses, simple methods like that.
Yeah,
So
and
the Tibetans
donkeys.
developed an ability to awaken in the body, an ability to run very effortlessly at high speeds,
Mm.
dozens
Oh.
of miles per hour. So they've been, clocked at 50, 60 miles an hour, just going up and down the hills effortlessly, for an hour
Wow.
at a time,
Yeah, yeah.
because they would go really deep into that flow energy that's latent in the body as a potential. So to me, it's as if one way I experience it is as if they're the body is really this multifaceted reality, and it has a lot of already active dimensions to it, and also dimensions that are kind of hidden or latent. It's almost like rooms in a house. You're like inhabiting this
Yeah,
house
yeah.
with many rooms,
Yeah, I call it
and you
that
might
too. It's
only be
like
familiar
open.
with, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Sorry.
You
Yeah.
might even only be familiar with a few of the rooms, or you might interact with some of the rooms just a little bit, you know. And it's possible to kind of go around and open more doors and find out what's what's hidden in there. And in a sense, like for instance, a classic version of that is Kundalini Yoga, where you learn to go into the body in a sense and awaken latent energies, especially the Kundalini ultimately. That's a way of talking about, I think, going into a room in this big building that's the body, and
Yeah.
discovering, sort of hidden treasures and
Yes.
latent abilities and qualities. And so to me, in a
And I
sense,
mean, just Mark,
yeah.
to just really pinpoint how for the you could so maybe call it the samsaric view, how
Hmm.
radical it can be. You said to me one day, I was talking about Wim Hof and his experience with you don't need to have all that clothes on your body. You're actually ruining the body's own way to regulate body and heat. And I was
Mm.
just like, amazed by that. And you said there was one time when Master going out to the water and he came back 9 months later.
Yes,
I'm
yes,
just to say how potent. I mean, that's
yeah,
it says
yeah.
it
I mean,
all, right?
he not only, of course, I'm sure this is what you're saying. Go when he went under the water.
Yeah, no, yeah,
Okay.
under the water, yeah. And
Yeah,
stayed there for 9 months and came up after 9 months.
right.
Like that is, that is radical, right? But
Yes, yes.
also, in a sense, we are saying when you're awakening the body, it's normal,
Mm,
right?
yes,
So it's
yes.
like let's
It's
just
only
have that
because
view.
humans are, as in our current humanity is at a certain stage of sort of spiritual unfoldment. So we relate to the body according to that level of development, and that's only understanding the body's potential to a limited degree. There's much more dimensions, potential in our bodies, and part of it is that we're also obviously multi-dimensional beings. We have other parts, like when we pass over, leave the body behind. We still exist, and so a part of our nature somehow, and this is to me very wonderful and mysterious, that this inner being, our soul, or whatever we would like to call it, can sort of somehow blend with this body and
Yes.
make a partnership and
Yeah.
coexist and and so there's something very interesting to understand about the body, that it can do that it can mirror and integrate with other realities, including
And
our.
also, even though we know or somewhat feel it that there is a soul incarnating, it's still pretty odd or
Mhm.
exciting or like what? How's that going on, right? So, like literally,
Hmm. Yes,
right? Yeah,
yes,
I love that you're saying that.
yeah. So, some of the modern sort of scientific ways of thinking about the body, that's kind of like a fancy um, material thing, and it, remarkably somehow has a brain that thinks these things. And some of that I think is, basically true, except that there's other layers. Like
Mm,
there's a way in which our body is actually able to come into a relationship and a sort of attunement and harmonization with other realities, other dimensions. So not only can our consciousness learn to sort of visit these other dimensions, like in meditation, but those dimensions can co-incarnate here in the body. And so there must be something about the body that's capable of being totally in harmony
yeah.
with that. It's not a battle. We don't like force the body to follow our
No.
command. As a soul, yes, there's a complicated relationship between the soul and the body.
Yeah, it's complicated.
But
It's
one potential is that the body has dimensions to it where it can come into total harmony with the soul and just effortlessly kind of co-create, like make a hybrid nature of soul and body united.
Yeah. And
And
what I
it's
love
not just,
about your teaching, I know they say that in many spiritual lineages, but you talk about non-dual where you get more sort of, for me, concrete, like relating,
Mhm.
interdependentness. What's the third word? Uh,
Yeah, interdependence, interrelated, interconnected. Yeah,
Interconnected. And
yes.
I think that when I sit these days, especially in meditation, I feel that interconnectedness to the extent sometimes that I wonder, why am I not the body?
Hmm.
Right? Like, why do I
Hmm.
say that I'm not the body? I mean, I can sense it, but at the same time, I feel today I led a meditation about just feel the intimacy that you want out there for with someone. Just feel it with yourself and let that be felt with the body, and then it can open like
Hmm.
so that you can feel you're also
Yeah.
the body, you're the
Yeah, in
life
this,
whatever.
I agree. In a certain sense, I think it's sort of traditional, at least in many traditions, to think of ourselves as souls incarnating in the body. But another path would be to say, well, what if I experience just really being one with my body? And then think of that as a spiritual path where I'm investigating what does that mean. Then we start to realize, even modern science will say things like, "But the body's not separate. It can't exist without,
No, they
the
say that
environment
now.
and
That's right. Science
right."
does say that.
So if we is it possible to attune to the body in a way where we can intuitively, directly experience that interrelatedness? Then our understanding what the body is changes, and it's not this separate, you know, organism anymore. It's part of an ecology, an interrelated life. There is subtle energies like light and electricity and all these things flowing. We're breathing in the air. We're sustained by
It's
the energy.
it's a
There's
galaxy,
gravity.
right? It's
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
totally a galaxy. I
yeah,
mean, more
yeah,
than a galaxy.
exactly. And then after a while, it's not so much the body anymore. It's the body is just like a point of being in the sea of interconnectedness. And is that really different than spiritual realization? So
Mhm.
it's not so much, am I this or this? It's kind of like, what's our realization of that? What is the body? If I could
Yes.
say I'm the body if as long as I really understand what that means. And that's
Yes.
not different than radical interrelationship too,
No, it's
right?
beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I saw, when I started teaching or I start a course, as I say many times again and again, and I'll say it again, is that it starts to sprout what I'm about to explore.
Mm.
And then what also happened is that sort of come across videos of the subject. It's like it's just,
Mm.
and
Mm.
lately there are so many videos coming to me about science and how they see plants and body as the plants and how we're interconnected. And I mean, it's just so beautiful how science,
Mhm.
I can't remember the name, and he has sort of like a whole community that also just the barefootness of connecting with earth, and that we're basically a plant, or body is a plant, or whatever we say, that body is a plant,
Mm.
and how it cannot not relate. It is
Right.
related, and that is
Hmm.
also sort of like a spiritual revelation, isn't it? I mean, that's coming through science, sort of finding a
Hmm.
deeper dimension of the body, isn't it?
Yeah. Especially, I think if we take that perspective and then we actually be with our body in a way where we open,
Yeah, not just like we have
right?
looked
Just like
in.
a,
It's
a,
like,
a theory, a
oh, it's
science
like
theory.
that. It goes.
Yeah.
It's like it's
But
not mechanics. No,
right.
no,
Then
no.
if we could discover, is it possible to experience that actually in
Yeah,
a felt and embodied and intuitive way? Then it turns into a spiritual path. It's not just science anymore, which is
no.
powerful in itself. I'm
Yeah,
not,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's just we're looking also for transformation and healing and awakening. And so we need to kind of more deeply open to that
Yes.
reality and experience it more fully. And
When you say that, I just could see that, as I said, there were multiple videos, and one was more like on the intellectual revelation, and then there was the other guy, and his throat and his voice became so tender when he talked about the body, and
Mm.
I could sense that he felt what he was talking about, and he was encouraging us to feel it. Not
Mm.
just as a philosophy, but like, not that there's anything wrong with that, but just like feeling it. And every time he talks about it, I could just hear it in his voice that he's experienced it. His voice became so tender. So it was,
Mm.
so there was such a tenderness towards the body and earth. And yeah,
That's
so,
sweet. Hmm. That's beautiful.
so the felt sense is the awakening, and maybe the more
Yes,
intellectual
that's
mechanics,
the
sort of like a pre steps, right?
yes. Yeah, so one way to bring it back to our metaphor of the house, the body's like then there's different rooms and dimensions to it. Um, One of the ways to approach kind of having a more um, full experience of the body is to find out whether just spontaneously or maybe we hear about it like through a conversation like this, we can talk about there are rooms in the house. It's kind of like there's explorers. I think of myself sometimes as like a spiritual explorer. And so I might just point out to people, do you know there's other rooms in the house? It doesn't, you might not have checked out, or maybe they are having experiences and we can say, well, that I just refer to that as that room, So there's a dimension of the body, for instance, that's very energetic, for instance. Some people will just spontaneously start feeling these energies, whether they're sort of call them prana or life force, chi, or just the sort of core dimensions of that, like kundalini, as it would be called in some traditions. Some people will just have a spontaneous experience of those kind of energies, and then it's useful to know what they are and how to work with that to kind of unfold a deeper spiritual experience and ultimately a potentially healing or transformative experience. But other times that's not at all what the body feels like. It's a multifaceted experience.
Yeah.
So sometimes that might show up, and then other times it feels heavy, it feels tired, it feels sluggish, it feels sleepy, it feels,
Yes.
we have things that we feel like we would like to do and it's not cooperating. So we kind of start to feel like,
Yes.
oh, you're kind of sort of giving me a hard time, or, we can have different kinds of relationships to it, to the body. So I kind of put that into different rooms, and I think it's valuable to kind of have a general idea of the different dimensions so that
Yes.
partially it's like a roadmap. If we're engaged in spiritual practice, we'll be able to have some understanding of what we're experiencing as different things happen.
Yes.
Because for me, one way is to just sort of show up in our practice if we're aware, if we include our body in our practice, and feel deeply into the body and have a sort of present-centered awareness that is willing to just accept what's there and have a kind of investigative spirit. And then different things will happen. Inevitably, it's kind of showing up to sort of a fascinating reality, our
Yeah.
physical bodies, and
Yes.
different things are going to happen.
Yeah. How many doors today?
Yeah. And ultimately, all of those doors will open. But sometimes a person can go through, we'll get into what's behind some of these, the four doors that are the main ones that I've talked about so far. And spiritual paths will kind of encourage some of those doors and sometimes not others. So a
Mm.
person, if they don't have a natural inclination that way, and maybe they're on a spiritual path that doesn't really teach about that, then that door might just remain closed their whole life, even though they're very much engaged in a spiritual
Mm.
path.
Mm.
And that's fine. Sometimes that's fine. Sometimes it can be problematic if we're not like fully appreciating the fullness of our human nature and our physical bodies. And so part of my own approach is I view human nature as very much at the heart of our path. We are spiritual beings, but our path is to be humans. Like as long as we're in these bodies, we're on a human path. And our bodies are like the foundation of that. They're
Yeah.
like the physical manifestation of our humanness. And
The
so, from my point of view, it's
inescapable, like inescapable truth,
mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm, yeah. We can
Hmm.
try to escape, but body has a way of giving us feedback about that when we do that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, yeah. So instead of that, I think it's very beautiful to reverse that and just say, why don't we honor the body as a profound key, a foundational part of our nature and experience, and then work with that consciously and then if over time gradually sort of expand into experiencing different dimensions of our physical bodies and um, what those different experiences bring.
And Mark, we often say that the body has these dimensions, and we can work so with it so they open. But I mean, what I hear from you and experience more and more is that it's more like us catching up, right?
Catching
Or
up like
like
to
to reveal, like, oh, now I can see the door. The door has,
mm,
or the doors has always been
mhm.
there. I'm not saying there's no value in training, not at all, and
Yes.
practicing, because that's also this weird interconnectedness, right? But that it's already there. And
Yeah, in a sense, I would say one way to approach the body is that it kind of shows up to us in part how we relate to it. And
yeah,
so
yes,
if we, and this is one of the things I think that's the most difficult. So one part of my experience of the body and so it's one of the rooms in the house, you might say, is kind of the ordinary experience of the body as um, having different traits. Some of which are sort of normal, some of which are positive, some of which are challenging. But it's relatively a normal experience of the body. And part of what I feel that brings out that part of the body is when we ourselves have a strong orientation towards having a lot of preferences. Like for instance, if the body one day is sick and another day is healthy, if we're very upset about that emotionally, if we really don't want it to be that way, oh, I'm sick again, and we get upset with that, we're actually creating a tension with the body because the body's just doing its thing. It's going through what, and are
mm,
we along for the ride, or are we appreciating what those experiences offer us as an opportunity to grow, or are we kind of resenting what the body's nature and what it's going through? And that just creates like more layers of obstruction. That sort of tightens up that we're not really opening up a doorway into a room and experiencing fully what's there. We're like, oh, I
yeah.
don't, we're trying to
That's
shut
a
that
weird
down.
thing. It's so innate, right? It's so weird to experience
Mhm.
this innate clamming.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
One of the things that really opens up the doors is a spirit of kind of appreciating the body as a part of our path, a very foundational, like central part of our path. I mean,
yes.
we used to be really real, get sort of just look right at the
It's
sort
like,
of
get real
obvious nature
about
of it.
it.
It's
Here
like,
it is. Here
here
it
we are,
is.
like we're in these bodies. Like,
Yeah.
so to me, spiritual
Surprise.
paths that are always about something other than our lived experience as human
Yeah.
beings
Yes.
seem like they're kind of, missing the point of human incarnation.
Yes.
So,
So we are here in the physical body. Let's talk about being this and that out there, right?
right,
And
right.
then we suffer. I mean, that's what I've experienced anyway.
Yeah. And
Since
that actually fits into one of those two that I was mentioning a minute ago. One way to relate to the body is to be overly attached to it, and specifically with specific ideas like, oh, I love my body, especially when I get to eat the great food that I like.
yeah, yeah. We're
But
not talking
if we're
about that.
but
On
if we're
on
like
the
if we're flexible about that, then when we don't have access to that food, we and our bodies suffer as a result.
Yeah, yeah.
We're kind of creating a condition in our body. We're reinforcing sort of, for ourselves and our bodies, we're creating this condition where it's really, really important to have that food. But can we have a lighter touch? Can we enjoy the food when it's available and then be completely content when it's not? If we can do that, actually, that opens up the body's potential and more joy, more contentment, more even bliss is
Yes.
potentially experienced in the body
Yeah, yeah, I get, I
if we're
mean,
not
that's,
so,
it's felt, yes.
sort of, rigid about our life and the body and what we're experiencing. So part of the one experience of the body is when we do sort of layer in those strong expectations and
Yeah.
judgments and because the body already comes sort of with a level of programming. Well, it's, there's an instinctual programming to
Yes.
survive and to
Yes.
reproduce and to be attracted to food and so on. And that's
But Mark,
natural.
can I just say, when you
Mhm.
say in English the body has certain traits, do you then mean personality wise, or are we coming in? I mean, this is a bit nerdy now, but coming in with the personality or the traits of the body on its own, or like a
Both,
okay,
both.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yep. In a sense, part of I feel that part of where we got our bodies is from the animal kingdom. They're sort of a certain kind of animal form that was selected out to be experience vehicles for human incarnation. And they come with their own sort of genetic programming. And that's important. That's part of the what is sort of like motivates the body to stay alive, for instance, to be concerned, like to not just do crazy, rash things, or
yeah,
to or to not care about feeding itself. Like it has to have some kind of basic wisdom about like how do I stay alive. So that's given. I think that's programmed in. We don't, as souls, we don't have to bring that with us and then teach the
yeah.
body how to care about itself. It already does.
But
You
in a
know.
very, in a way, in a very strict way, doesn't it? I mean, like
Well,
the the
I
the,
think
the animal body seems to be very, when I look at my dog, it's like very, one-pointed about many
yes,
things,
yes, it
right?
can be very like, yeah, it can be
Yeah, it
for
can be.
sure.
Okay, yes.
And but then what immediately happens as we start growing up is we start mixing our own human ideas. We learn things we even bring things over from other incarnations, but we certainly learn things from our environment and we
Yeah,
develop
very
beliefs.
true.
And so
Yes.
by the time we're an adult, we don't have direct access anymore to our really pure basic instincts and experiences of, say,
Mhm.
eating food anymore. Now it's all overlaid and complicated, you know, version of it that's mixed in with human psychology and values and experiences and so on. And so, for
Yeah, and then
instance, if
all of a sudden you eat food because you have certain thoughts form around it and not not
Mhm.
connected at all.
Yeah,
It's just like
yeah,
thought
and
forms
emotional
saying,
reactions to
yeah,
it, and yeah,
yeah, but that's like sort of known. I mean,
yeah,
like you want to dim down this, so you want to up a feel, you want to be up or down. It's more like a drug. You can use food. I mean, I
yeah,
know that very well. But the
mhm.
weirdest part for me is that there is like a thought forms around saying, oh, when you do this and then you'll have that experience. But I mean, it's never that it's never that good. But having thoughts forms around what's good for my body, I find that odd. But I
Yes,
mean, that's
yes, yeah. It's almost as if I think sometimes some positive ideas about diet that we can figure out from different things from our personal experience or from science studies and things. In some ways, part of its value is to kind of help us get back through the fog that we as
yeah.
humans have accumulated and get back in touch with our bodies. So if we're too far away, we need some guidelines about like what direction to go in to get back in touch with our body's innate wisdom about how to eat well. I think if we could strip away the noise in the system that comes from our emotions and our beliefs and all of that, our conditioning,
Trauma.
some of it's even just painful experiences. Like if we happen to eat a food that and we got, let's say, food poisoning and had a really rough couple of days with a big reaction. Now we have like a painful
Yeah.
association with that
Yeah.
food.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that food, but we have an issue with it now.
Yes.
We might not want to eat that anymore.
No.
Um, so uh, all of those kind of things can contribute to a way of relating to our physical bodies and our a simple basic element of our body, like its desires to eat, and complicate things a lot.
Yeah. So you could also categorize it ways of relating to the body where it's sort of always end up in pain or suffering.
Yes.
Maybe
Yep. Yes.
samsaric.
Yeah.
The
Yes. Yeah. And so one of the things that's interesting, though, about that aspect of the body, both its sort of innate desires and aversions, its programming, its instincts, and then the ones that we can add to that. Because, the body isn't innately programmed to like video games. There was no video games, thousands, millions of years ago. We mix that desire in, we add additional things, and every culture has different contexts. So the funny thing, we think these desires are so kind of given, and we're very often, we as humans or have a certain environments where we just kind of get used to and feel
Yes.
that, oh, that's the way it is, and that's what I want, and
Yes.
that's what I need. And we can get pretty rigid about it,
Yeah.
forgetting that in a completely different time or culture,
Yeah.
nobody did that, and they were often perfectly fine without doing that. None of this
Exactly.
is,
And
very
it's not
little of
that
what we
many
actually,
100 years ago, right? It's like
yes,
500 years back and it's totally different.
right, right. So I'm not saying that some of these new things that we desire are necessarily wrong per se. It's just that when we get really rigid about it, really attached,
Yeah, it hurts.
then that is sort of layers on additional stuff in our experience of our bodies where we can suffer more.
Yeah.
So there's a part of the body that's really about that one could sort of describe as a mirror that
Mm.
both gives us opportunities to experience different activities, different desires and aversions, different kind of karmic feedback, like what happens when we feel a certain way or when we act a certain way. And that part of the body we can be upset with. A lot of times humans don't like the suffering that happens, for instance. But from a spiritual point of view, it's also can be seen in a positive way as an educational opportunity because the body's very meticulous at giving us feedback
Yeah.
about how
Yes.
we're being in the world, right?
Mm.
And there's plenty of evidence. Sometimes people have momentary experiences of this, and we can read about people who are in these states more continuously, where if we really live in harmony with the body and we can't and the body is sort of the deeper dimensions of the body are awakened and our body is healed and illuminated and deep dimensions of the body are integrated, then the body can be in radically different states and very content. So there's enormous potential. Like in some way, we can just say
Yes.
there's a lot about what the body's capable of, how it's
And
capable of
also,
healing.
also capable of in a way that's very tangible, visible. It's like this is gonna show up very tangible. Like there are many
Hmm.
things that's not that tangible when you're in a body. You need to meditate or close your eyes or whatever, have
Right.
visits. But this is felt.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. And ultimately, for me, that's where it comes back to on the spiritual path is we can do practices that sometimes even sort of are involving us in exploring other realities that we could think of somehow as not the same as the body. But if it doesn't come back to being integrated with the body, then I don't think that's a complete path. We're sort of keeping things in different compartments. So the body really is capable of being included and reflecting and participating and having not only a valued place in the path, but being a place where anything that we can awaken in other aspects of our nature can be integrated with the body too, including, so when people talk, say Buddhists or Hindus talk about something like nirvana, that can be a deeply embodied experience. It's not in some other realm somewhere where you go to nirvana like heaven after you die, nor is it some heady thing that's way, your body's down here, kind of you're dragging it around while you're in nirvana, up here. And no, it can be felt in the body as very deeply felt. And part of when that happens, the more we integrate that kind of presence, that kind of awareness, those spiritual qualities and wisdom with the body, it really helps to bring out these other dimensions to the body, including I. So one of the I'm going to lay out for a moment the four main dimensions that I talk about. So one is essentially kind of what might be called the normal dimension of the body. This is the level that is a product of ordinary consciousness, where we think of ourselves as a separate being. And because we feel separate, deep down inside, when we have the essential experience that we're separate, causes us to feel a sense of lack. Something's missing. So at the heart of ordinary human experience is a sensation of I'm not complete somehow. Something's missing, something's not whole. So then we go about figuring out like how do I feel better? How do I fill
Mm.
this lack? We develop desires and aversions like this is going to help and this is making it worse. I got to get away from these things and can I get these things? That whole state of mind has a mirror in the body. The body, participates in that too. It has an aspect of its own nature that is in that state of mind, its own version of that state of mind, and then it can kind of
Mm.
partner with our conscious self's version and create a kind of total human version of that. So that's one of the dimensions. The body is normally has an aspect that's like that. But also, we as human beings, as souls, are capable of gaining wisdom, developing spiritual qualities like inner peace and contentment, love, and wisdom. But not only are those something that our soul or consciousness can develop, they can be embodied too. There's a dimension of the body that can be awakened and that resonates with that. So we can even go as far as to say that to the extent that the body has parts that are in a state of struggle, of lack, of pain, of trauma, of illness, and so on, those parts, as we awaken this other aspect of the body's potential to embody enlightenment, those parts will gradually heal and be transformed as well. So ultimately, there won't be still these separate compartments, like,
Mm.
for instance, the one where there's more ordinary human traits, uh, like including suffering and disease, but also all the temporary ups and downs of life, positive states. And um, so all of that in one area, uh, when enlightenment awakens and is deepening in a person, it's not kept separate. It will gradually awaken and integrate with and transform this other part, the part that's struggling more, that has disease and suffering. But it's a gradual process. It takes time, so we don't just immediately think that we're going to kind of
And
radically heal and
and you also
transform.
need to have the, I think
Hmm.
you need to have the uh, want and the wish or the insight around that body can and should or would awaken, or else there's a part of you that awakens and body still be is body, right? Oh
Say
yeah,
more.
that was a weird way of saying that.
Yeah.
No,
The
it's more like
paradox that we have as humans is that we do have a dualistic way of relating where, it's like two different people talking, or me and the world in general, or
yeah,
me and my body even. So there's internal
yeah,
versions too. And the part that's sort of self-aware, the part of our nature that has self-awareness, and can even step back and think about things and say, hmm, why do I even exist, for instance? I think generally that's a trait that comes more from a certain part of our nature. And to me, my experience is that's the part that reincarnates, that goes from one body to another. It
Mm.
has one of its traits is it has this kind of self-reflective nature, and it can kind of step back from things and say, like the animal part of our body just kind of has an instinctual and habitual tendency to just do what it wants to do in the moment. Our soul is the part that can say, you know what, I've been doing that pattern for a while. Is that really working for me? Doesn't seem like it's really making me happy. Why not? And let me reconsider. And maybe there's some way to redirect that energy in a healthier way, something that's going to actually work better for me. Um,
But
so
Mark,
that gives,
Mark, can I say
sure,
something?
sure,
What
go
I
ahead.
meant was that it seems to me many spiritual people talk about awakening and they teach awakening, but it seems still separate from the body. I don't know if
Yes.
it was that you were answering, but it's like,
So,
okay, I'm awake and then there's the body.
mm,
So it's like,
right.
are they awake, partly awake? What's
Yeah,
going on, right?
right. So get back to that. Yeah, I see your point, and so what I'm saying is, although this human soul part is sort of a key part of the path, and we can talk about it gaining wisdom. To me, as human beings, it's not really complete unless it includes the body and is
Mm,
integrated with the body.
mm.
And the body has the potential to participate in that enlightenment. It can be transformed and healed and integrate. In fact, there's sort of a hidden layer in the body, one of the rooms,
Yeah,
that really resonates with that enlightenment. And so it's not just a matter of sort of imposing enlightenment on the body.
no.
It's a matter of also awakening that potential within the body to come forward. And
But people need to know or have lineages that know or respect it, right?
Mhm.
It's not. Is it common? It's or what?
It's definitely out there. I would say there's
Yeah, yeah,
quite
it's
a
out
few.
there. You can buy it.
Yeah, like for instance, in the tantric traditions of India and
Mm,
Tibet, and even they went to the Far East as well into China and Japan. There's sort of these tantric traditions, or Taoism. I think generally has a kind of
mm,
tantric sensibility. Um, so there's various traditions like that that in different ways have this appreciation of the body. Some are more kind of more non-dual, and so they lean in the direction of saying, well, let's not think so much about even there being a body or a soul. Let's say that there's just one reality, and we won't get into the body versus soul distinction. We'll just go to the next level and say it's all one enlightened realization, and there's no, and that's fine too. That's a way of experiencing it. It's not. I put a slightly different spin on it myself, but it still kind of preserves the reality that there is a one of the rooms that we'll talk about is kind of about that view.
mm.
But there is a kind of stage where it can be okay, you might say, or even necessary, inevitable, to see oneself as relating to the body. And you can find, I think it's important to do that in loving ways, but that don't, that honor the reality that we can make decisions about what to do. And we can look at sometimes there are impulses in our minds or our emotions, our desires and aversions, or our physical body that we decide to reevaluate and say, well, is that working for me, basically? Um, but at more advanced stages, it's possible for all that to have done its work and developed even deeper levels of integration. And then where the seam between the body and the soul is starts to become much more subtle, and it transforms to a level where it's not the way we used to experience it. And that's because both the soul and the body have like become more enlightened in a sense, in our
Mm.
realization of how they relate, what they even are. Um, so that's another, we'll lay out the four
Yeah,
main
I
rooms
know you are
of
on
the
a
house.
track. Yeah,
I would call that, so we talked about the ordinary level of the ordinary way of experiencing the body.
yeah.
And then we could call the second one the enlightened experience of the body. But there's two aspects of that. This is where we get to subdividing a little bit.
Yeah, but in the paper that I have, you call the second one the holy spiritual one.
Well, I'm not, yeah. Would you prefer to go in that order? Because I'm not
It's not a
I,
linear thing. It's just like
yeah, I just think
different.
of them as different rooms. I haven't
It's,
really put
oh, I
numbers
love
on
that.
them.
Oh, I love that because I was thinking about that today. That in a way it didn't make sense to say one, two, three, four, but you do that in a language, right? You can
Yeah,
just put it in a circle and like.
it's fine to talk about them in any order you want.
No,
That's
yeah.
that's my
It's not that
experience.
I want to. It's just I love that it's
Yeah,
not like that, right?
good.
I
Yeah, me
just
too.
wanted to bring that out.
Great. Yeah. So whether, in the order that we're happen to be talking about today, the second is
Yes.
um, the enlightened dimension. And the first stage of the enlightened dimension is more what I sometimes call relative. It's kind of an growing intuitive um, way of experiencing things. It's the part, for instance, that would recognize that we incarnate in this body, but we also reincarnate. That's a
Mm,
particular, I call it like soul wisdom.
mm,
And it includes the part that appreciates spiritual qualities like peace or contentment or patience or generosity or so that's part of there's a part of the body that resonates with that has its own capacity to feel harmonized with that and loves that. Really, there's a part of the body that just loves soulfulness and
mm.
harmonizes deeply with it.
Yeah, I
But there's
recognize
another,
that, Mark.
is it, what was that?
I recognize that. And
Yeah.
that's very powerful.
Mm, yeah,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah, it is.
So the second part of the enlightened room, if we subdivide it a little, is what could be called non-dual or mystical, and that starts to move into a realm that much more radically sees the interdependence of all things. And that interdependence can get so deeply intuitively felt and embodied that it's like you're in the body, but it's such a transformed experience of what the body is and what the soul is, or the mind, or different dimensions, or the world out there, that it all becomes infused with a seamless quality where you can still distinguish things, but at the same time realize that they're all connected. And that quality of connection just transforms your experience of the difference.
Mm,
One of the most powerful experiences that I've had in my life, um, a type of awakening in my 20s. I was counseling somebody, and suddenly I went into an altered state right in the middle of the session. And long it takes a little bit to explain all the details, but the gist of it was I went into a super conscious state where my eyes were still wide open and I was still looking at the other person, but what we would ordinarily call body or even consciousness just sort of disappeared into another way of experiencing things where all of those things I knew intuitively existed, like what we could call the physical world, but it did not show up anymore as the physical world. I was in a different, so I wasn't in another dimension. I was just
mm,
seeing this dimension in a completely different way, and in a way that was not incompatible with seeing it as not as somehow hyper distinct from other things like the mind or emotions or consciousness itself. Everything had this flavor of interconnectedness so that it was all transformed. And so I couldn't really make a clear distinction between the physical world and other dimensions. So the embodiedness was much more, in a weirdly, very much more radically embodied because how much more embodied can you get to realize that every
yeah,
other dimension is co-incarnate in this dimension
yes.
seamlessly,
And was it grounded? Did you feel grounded? And
completely grounded.
yeah, that's that because
So what groundedness even means, though, is
yeah,
like,
yeah, but what I mean here is like when we hear people talk about, I just read a person saying he felt unity and oneness and bound
mhm,
and he and out of the body and like and it
yes.
was so difficult for him to come back and I'm not hearing that. So you can
Well, a year earlier, uh, I think that this was about 1983. I had one of those experiences where I rose up out of my body and just merged into cosmic consciousness, and my sense of individuality merged into that. And I was just absolute, universal, eternal consciousness with no boundaries and no
Yeah.
individuality.
I mean, it's
But
not
that was,
that.
there was no awareness of body or the world or time or anything like that anymore. I was just this pure beingness, consciousness, reality. This other experience that happened a year later was kind of taking the implications of that and completely integrating it and
Yeah,
illuminating this so
that's
that
what I
all of
mean.
this was transformed in the light of that. Very different, and in many ways that was to me a much more inspiring
Yeah,
and
yeah.
beautiful realization, because the other one was beautiful too, for sure, and very, very illuminating, but
Mm.
to embody it was even more, felt even more sort of profound and complete. Um, So
And
that's it.
that is sort of like somewhat of a complete experience and a goal, you can say, like when body
Hmm.
really
Yep.
is, as you said, ultimately connected.
Yep. And so that was in the, I didn't experience my body and my brain and everything in the same way I do. Like, oh, I think up here, and yet somehow there's an ability of the body that it can participate in all of that. It has a dimension where it can just completely harmonize and mirror that and not
Yeah.
have that be something that one part of you is experiencing. And then there's the body kind of, you drag the body
No.
around for the body's remarkably capable of just, if you open up all these doorways, and integrate them. And it takes, healing and transformation and things have to take place enough to provide, conditions that allow that to happen.
But you can also have less, like a flavor of it, can you? Because
Hmm.
I think I've
Hmm.
had that the last couple
Yep.
of weeks where today I was like, am I grounded? Well, I don't feel ungrounded. I don't feel
Yeah.
space like when I say, you and me talk about I feel spacious and no, not spacious, like uh out there, ungrounded and so on. But it was just like, is there a body? And it wasn't in a
Hmm.
weird way. It wasn't in a way as when I feel it, where it feels, where it ends up with suffering. It was just like,
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know, but it was,
Yes,
yeah. So you can
absolutely.
have the flavor of it, and when you start to
Yeah.
meditate on the
Yeah.
body.
One of the, frankly, the dangers in big, big sort of powerful spiritual experiences like the two I just described is that it can cause us to kind of get attached to
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
And then we miss all the
Very
beautiful little
understandable.
details, like, because when we go back to our lives, which we inevitably do, and 99.9% of the time, you don't get to stay. You come back to sort of like the grounded work of being a human being. And and then on a day-to-day level, a week to week, month to month, year to year, little changes can be happening. And you're not, sometimes if you're too attached to like, wow, that was so cool, I want to get that experience back, then you miss all the little things that are happening. And one of those is that little tastes of that are can be
Yeah.
leaking in and infusing and transforming you. And you might miss those. So it's a lot about kind of reintegrating, getting grounded again, and being patient for the, that's going to come someday in this life or another. Maybe I'll have more profound access to that. But for now, I have to work with kind of opening from where I am
So
in a
that was
more,
like the curriculum, and then
yeah, have a
like
glimpse
back
of like
to,
the getting the degree.
yeah. And now
Now go
let's
back to
go for
first
a
grade.
drive. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. So,
You have really taught me to notice awakening as subtleties instead of these wows and the first and second initiation and so on. These subtleties I've really come to appreciate that, because then you can sort of lessen the waiting or the something out there, right?
hmm, yes, yes.
And there's so much wisdom about how it all comes uh, out in it, the slow
Yeah. Mm,
sunrise, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so
So a third and perhaps in some ways less familiar um, dimension of the body is what I sometimes call holy spiritual. I got that term, well, obviously it comes from Christianity, but Daskalos, the Cypriot Christian mystic and esotericist, kind of put his own interpretation, which I think is valid, as he sees it as essentially the sort of divine feminine, a kind of archetypal, um, but not, um, but it, but in this case, it's an expression of. So the notion here is, let's say, when we really try to understand where the body comes from, yes, from a scientific point of view, you can say it kind of evolved, and obviously we're related to primates. Like you can actually look at the science and trace it back, Neanderthals and
Mm.
Heidelbergensis, and all the way back to, Homo
Apes.
erectus and back to other kinds of ancient primates. But that doesn't really look at the spiritual story of where our bodies came from. I believe that there's also, and this is my experience, that there are intelligences that work not only with these bodies, our human bodies, but all forms of life, animals, plants, and so on. And so there's things about the way our bodies function, the intelligence that's in the system that we have, like our digestive systems, the instinctual intelligence of how does it know how to digest things and how to
Yeah,
decide what to extract. And
yeah.
um,
And the cell.
I believe part of that comes from super intelligences, non-physical beings that, excuse me, work with not only creating our bodies when they're developing in the womb and growing up, but also they're always with us, these intelligences. You could call them devas or archangels or nature intelligences, whatever we want. But they're not in a very spiritual way. They're not just sort of standing off on the side, helping out and helping to. Their intelligence is kind of inside of our body because they don't experience themselves as separate. They experience a deeper sense of interconnectedness, and they work within our bodies. So we can find them there. We can develop a consciousness that can discover, oh, there's nature intelligences in my body.
But Mark, wouldn't you say that they are that? It's like if they
They,
weren't there, it would be dead, like the body would have another.
yes,
Would you say
yes.
like so it's like
Mhm.
it's the when you sculpture, it's like it's a you can't sort of take it out, then the
Yeah.
organ or whatever, the tissue would die or
Hmm.
whatever, right? So it's that
Yeah.
ingrained. I love to see it like that because
Yeah.
it's that ingrained.
Yes.
And then I
One way
also
one
would,
way to put it is that they, you know how we can, I love this, image of people have seen if you put little iron filings on a plate on a flat surface and then you hold a magnet nearby.
yeah.
The iron filings
Oh yeah,
arrange
yeah, yeah.
themselves
The
into a
the
pattern.
holding it. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I love that. Yeah.
So
But some
the body is
have,
partially made up of matter, like the iron filings, but
yeah.
something is holding it in this shape,
Yes.
like a magnetic field
Yes.
shaping the iron filings. Those superintelligence are part of that. Without them, they wouldn't be in this shape.
And it's not the soul. Just like saying
No, it's not the
it's
soul. Our
just this
soul, and so this is a really wonderful thing about this.
the co-work.
If you really embody your spirituality and appreciate and love the body, not just being naive about, well, the body can also get confused and be misguided. So we have to make our own choices. And so we're part learning from the body and we're part guiding the body. It's both.
Mm.
But if we make the best of that, and if we learn and we get wiser and we get more intuitive, and that intuition is really embodied, there's a type of intuitive awareness that not only just observes like a kind of detached observer, but starts
Hmm.
to kind of resonate with the reality that we're connecting to. That's where we start moving into a kind of more intuitive knowing, and where there's a feeling, knowing dimension of connection. If we have that with our bodies, and we go into this, in our current numbering, the third room, the
Yeah,
holy
yeah.
spiritual room, then we actually will start to resonate with these sort of these nature super intelligences.
Yes.
in our bodies and get an infusion of their wisdom and understanding so that we will actually absorb their understanding of how to make these bodies and sustain them. And that
And
can
I
get so
love,
deep that
you
we
know,
can go
okay,
ahead.
so I'm so excited that I'm just sitting on my hands to not interrupt you all the time.
I understand.
Go on, go on.
Well, I'll just take it to the sort of like the final point is that will lead to not only a deep love and appreciation of that work and those beings and an ability to cooperate with them, but also an infusion of their power and wisdom to the point where
Yeah.
we can create bodies ourselves. We can do what they do. So when you see a master that can materialize another
Mm,
body,
mm, mm.
that means that they've become one with the Holy Spirit that's functioning in their body
Yeah, yeah.
and have mastered what they are doing and can use their consciousness to just project another body. So that's how deep that can go. Normally, in an incremental way, we gain little bits of insight about that. And one of the things is that, when we become injured, these beings go to work to try to heal that injury. And our karma can get in the way and slow it down. If we
Yeah.
didn't have any karma, the injury would heal rather quickly. It's only our
Mm,
karma and our own state of mind that can interfere with that. But if we flip
mm.
that around and we transform and heal our karma and we bring our own state of mind into harmony with them, then the healing would happen very quickly. We can even be part of that and speed it up.
That's beautiful. And can I throw in the sort of this means that also we as a soul or like a being are coming into the body and we are infused. Or there's what I've learned, when I was younger, it was more like there's this, body and the soul is just like steering it all, like, so
Right.
here is a soul saying, so instead of, oneness is integrated into individuality or whatever. It's like this is a more I don't know what you say in
Hmm.
English. This is more an equal path where soul really
Hmm.
enriched. It's not
Hmm.
just a vehicle, right?
Right. It has
And I
a
love
lot of
that.
dimensions to it, and some of those dimensions are very much. They're not just like an opportunity to be educated from our normal behavior. Like in a sense, it's true. One aspect of the body is it's like a car, like a vehicle you get in and you
Yeah,
drive
yeah.
around and you can learn. It gives you an opportunity to sort of make decisions and test out life and you know, experience life and experience the consequences of choices and learn. And from that point of view, it's kind of like the steering thing that you mentioned.
How
But
to
there's a
steer,
whole
learning
different
how to
ways and
steer.
dimensions of the body too, like where that might be part of it. Um, Also, as our own enlightenment advances, that gets much more subtle. There's like you may have heard of dressage, this form of horse, a type of sport, I suppose it would be called, where you ride a horse, but you develop this very intricate system of communicating with the horse what to do, so that you're really in harmony with the horse and the horse with you, and your ability to ride. As I understand it, I knew somebody that did this, was very much about how subtle and in harmony your relationship with the horse was. So you're not like yanking it around. It's the opposite. It's about so there's beautiful levels of harmonizing that can happen.
Yeah.
In the Zen ox herding pictures, which is like stages of enlightenment, there's an early stage called struggling with the ox. The ox is like almost like, well, it has different meanings, but one level it's sort of like your body and personality.
Yeah,
So at
yeah.
one stage, you're kind of struggling with the ox. The next stage is self and ox cooperating. There's another word that's used, but I forget what it is at the moment. And then at higher stages, it's self and ox forgotten. Like the difference
Mm.
is transformed into a non-dual realization.
Ah,
But you have to go through the self and ox
yeah,
struggling
yeah,
phases and
yeah, yeah.
harmonizing, getting, and then they really start getting along for a while. You still feel the difference of soul and body, but they're much more in harmony at that point. And then it goes even to even more advanced stages of that
Mm,
relationship.
mm,
So that's there. But another beautiful dimension of the body is this holy spiritual dimension, where there are beings functioning there that in some ways are more enlightened than us already.
mm,
It's possible to actually fully absorb their realization and then take it one more step. That's so there. A lot of those beings ultimately are in training to become human beings too. They're
mm,
types of angels that are that relative to the consciousness of the average incarnate human, they're more advanced, but they don't have radical non-dual realization. They have more of a soulful, intuitive kind of wisdom, and it's very deep. It's very beautiful, but it also requires for them to stay in it, to not be in a body. So they can create bodies and they can help other humans incarnate and grow. And you can learn a lot from them. And ultimately, they're going to want to have the experience too. They're going to incarnate in order to kind of complete their training. They have to kind of go back into being embodied and take a whole nother level of development. But they're very beautiful and advanced, and you can learn a lot from them just by appreciating the body and learning to
mm.
kind of dig deep enough into the body to awaken a connection to them, to their presence there and what they're doing. And they love that. They're like craftspeople, crafts beings who
Yeah,
are
yeah. Great. Yeah.
love providing this opportunity. And so if a human recognizes them and appreciates what they're doing, that's beautiful for them too. So
Mm.
a lot of them work with the elements. They work their sort of intelligences of water and earth and fire and air and the etheric energies and so on. And
So,
they're all working in the body.
so besides awakening into that there is elements and there is chakras and nadis and or there is energy. There are sort of, well, a wrong word maybe, but soulful,
Hmm.
soulful organs. Then there comes the thing about how you define soul. I know, but
Hmm.
there's like presence or beings, in
Hmm.
all these elements. So that is also part of the awakening, not just
Absolutely.
awakening to the elements
Yeah.
as an element, but the beings that is
Hmm.
providing or sustaining the element,
Yes.
right?
Yep. And they're right there. And if we if we relate to our bodies in a very patient way, where we just really work to find a balanced relationship to our body, where we're neither attached to it nor are we judging it or pushing it away. We're not trying to escape, but we're not also like we just have a kind of loving, accepting, balanced relationship to the body. That'll clear a fog that we have. Because when we get into this tensionful love-hate relationship with life and with our
Yeah,
bodies,
that's
I need things to rigidly to be this way or not this way and so
yeah,
on.
yeah.
It creates a kind of messy fog. We can't really get in touch with that level of our body.
And that is even without meditating, or are you saying we need a practice?
Both
Oh,
when we're not meditating and when we're meditating. Yeah.
just a relaxed, not
Yeah. Just
rigid,
being
not
a type
grasping.
of awareness that is very, and it has to be willing to tolerate the ups and downs. It has to be willing to accept the suffering that's there,
Yeah.
to accept things as they are, both in our condition of our bodies and our lives. The more we can have this more contented, patient presence that's very accepting and ultimately even loving and appreciative, and we bring that awareness to our bodies, it kind of gradually opens up these doorways just naturally. We don't,
Yeah.
and knowing about them helps because we can sort of like
Yeah.
take that kind of awareness and then a little bit tweak it towards.
Yes.
So um, you can even call them forward. You can ask them to sort of like um, engage with you. Um, so there's a series of different kinds of extended meditations that awaken our awareness of, but it'll if we just or if we know that that's a dimension of the body and we just work with a type of path that includes being more in touch with our physical bodies and loving and accepting our bodies in those ways.
Mm.
It'll come forward eventually. It might take time because it's buried. In
Mm.
fact, in some ways, the powers, the abilities, the intelligence that they use is very intense. And so it's not necessarily a good idea for it to come out prematurely. It's almost like
Mm.
veiled a little bit. So you have to go through some healing and change and get some more wisdom and maturity of character, and then they will start to lift the veil too and reveal themselves.
Mm.
Um, and then they will even,
Beautiful.
in a sense, you can even have a more conscious relationship and actually relate to them, have a, you know, in a sense, when people talk about having inner guides, sometimes a type of guide is these super intelligences that work with our bodies.
Mm. And would you say that when sometimes when I feel body, different things can happen, but sometimes it's feel like body is innate love. So that's not
Mm.
like, a specific deva or element or being, with,
Hmm.
holding or igniting, what's it called? It's not like a specific being. It's more like an overall, like a ground of the body and like goddess or love
Hmm.
or that's, but that's more like on a,
I would agree. And one of the ways I would put that is in the way we just talked about. Those beings are very loving. And if we connect to that dimension of our bodies, one of the ways that can show up is feeling uh, very loved and nurtured and appreciated,
yeah.
you know,
And as if the
and
bricks,
valued.
the bricks of the body is love.
That's the way. So the reason I developed the four kind of
Yeah.
main rooms is
Yeah.
because I would say that's one of the rooms,
Yes, that's what I was.
but there's actually a part of the body that can feel difficult. That's another room.
Feel
So
difficult.
it can be both. Like for instance,
Oh,
uh, if our body has an instinct of like fight and flight, we might kind of feel like I don't want to do either in this situation. I just want to be present, be relaxed, but my body is all triggered and wants to do fight or flight. And at that moment, there's a struggleful relationship, and it doesn't feel like it's helpful that it's reacting that way. So that part of the body needs to be illuminated and transformed. And that's fine. That's part of what gives us our opportunity to grow is
yeah,
having
yeah.
these multidimensional bodies that have different parts.
It's
And
not, it's not a, it's not it's not flawed. It's not a mistake. That's what you're saying. It's like, it's still pretty, this is the road, this is the path. It's not a mistake. We're not
right,
taking that view,
it's
even
meant to
though there
that
is
be
a
there. Yeah.
transformation. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
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 But it seems to me that I have a tendency to not feel in the body anyway, or the entities, the devas or whatever you call it, but more like qualities, like goddess, like love. But then lately I'm beginning to just open up to see, can I also just, maybe the experience the whatever god or organ more specific, just
Mm.
to see if I can invite more doors in, opening up.
Yes.
Because it is easy for me to, well, not maybe not anymore, but for many years ago, I felt the angelic kingdom in a specific way, right up there, sort of, and I felt as an angelic being, but feeling the angelic uh, being in my body is still sort of, there is an ingrained part of me that think it's still not body, right? So when
Yeah.
I feel
Mhm.
body, it's often qualities or goddess or like all sorts of weird stuff. So I mean, in a good way, weird stuff.
Mhm. I
So
see.
I think I have a yeah, like a view that I need to work with, right?
Hmm.
If I want, or it can
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
just show up, right? So let's see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. In a sense, I think both of just I know this might not be exactly what you're talking about right now, but I think it's related that
Yeah,
one way to relate to the body is to just show up with no expectations.
yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah.
yes.
And then the other
Yes.
way is to be a little kind of like investigative, where you have themes that, so, and I think both are valid. So part of the four dimensions of the body idea is to give sort of little suggestions of dimensions that you can show
It's
up
like
just
an
literally like,
invitation. Like
yes,
this is
that's right.
this is a, like if you want, we can do this, but I can also
That's right.
just be open, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But I also experienced once when I sat with the body, it was, and I started to think, where does the body even come from? And I didn't know why I was, it just arose that question. And I saw like a road behind me and it was endless. And like a laugh, like that's not to be answered,
Hmm.
almost, right?
Right.
Like it's so mysterious and it's so deep and it's just like, and it was so beautiful, even though it wasn't really an answer.
Mm.
Like you sometimes say it's mysterious, and I love
Yes.
that. So it's
Yes.
not rigid. Oh, it starts here and it ends there.
Right. Right.
And all the suggestions around God made this and we made that. That was just not there
Mm.
in the moment anyway.
Yeah.
I'm not
And you know what?
negating that.
I,
I'm not saying that's not valid, but it's just that was new for me because I've heard all those stories and felt the stories and with the gods and la la la. But this was just like a beautiful road, like it's had no ending or no beginning, but still a path.
for me, I think that that actually relates to the fourth dimension that we've talked
Mm.
about of and one of the terms I would use for that of the a nature of the body is mystical. And
Yes.
that word mystical to me, one of its meanings is it's a mystery, like you were just saying about.
Yeah, that's what I felt. And all the laugh was like, try to figure that out.
Yeah. To me,
Okay.
not only the body, but just life itself, our own nature.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah,
dimension to me that's part of spirituality that I think is something that the part of our mind that wants everything figured out,
yeah,
wants anything in a box to be secure.
yeah, la la
That
la.
part has
Yeah,
to let go of that because there's a dimension, a nature to reality in my experience, and this includes the body, that you'll never figure that out. The mind will never be able to put it in a box. It's a mystery, but not in a bad way. It can be
no,
very
it was
beautiful.
lovely.
Yes,
Freeing,
yes,
freeing.
yes. So there's different ways to come at that dimension, but one of them is through the beauty of words like mysticism or the mystery, which point at the ineffable, the inconceivable, the mysterious aspect of reality. And the body, it's kind of like that's not just a way of talking about that we can't figure it out. It's also like the way things are. Like
Yeah,
there's a like
yes,
when the Taoists say, the Tao, the way of things. They start what is it, not the Bhagavad, the Tao Te Ching starts with lines along the lines of the Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao. And that points to this mystery. You can't name it, you can't conceptualize it, you can't kind of it transcends our, but we can directly intuit it. But that's not in the sense of, oh, I got the answer now. It's more like we can come into harmony with this aspect of reality. It's like
yes,
the ground, the ocean dimension of reality. You can look at the waves and talk about how waves act and how they relate to each other and how to ride the waves and different things. But then there's just the ocean, the ground out of which the waves come. And the body is part of that ocean too. Its fundamental nature is it's not different than the Tao. It's not different. Call it God, Goddess, Brahman, the Tao, the universal ground reality, whatever terminology you like. There's
is that
something.
non-dual? When you say all those words, are you then also saying
Yeah,
non-dual?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Okay, that's just one of the many words, right?
Yes, it's one of the many words. And all of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
words
yeah,
are imperfect. So even the word non-dual is, in my
yeah,
mind,
yeah,
we
yeah.
use it
I get
because it's
it.
so popular, but it's actually kind of got some concepts in it,
Yeah,
non-dual,
yeah,
which
yeah.
so I prefer, In Zen, they sometimes just call it it, like with a capital I, just it, you know. Or there's a word in
It's
Chinese Buddhism, suchness,
yes,
which just means like what it is, like the isness
yes,
of it,
it is
you
what
know.
it is.
Yes, and
So I didn't really know I had that flavor that day. It was very beautiful, and it's like, okay,
hmm hmm
beautiful.
and that can be something that we can get little tastes of, or we can start to develop a kind of more steady attunement to, and then it can blossom into like and essentially, you could say that when that reaches a fully embodied realization of the suchness or the mystery, the non-dual nature of things, then that's very liberating enlightenment. Buddhists would call that nirvana or liberation, or but it's not a liberation away from anything. It's not you go someplace else. It's a liberation from that which is obstructing you at being in harmony with just the way things are and seeing the truth of things and feeling that, in your body, completely participating in that.
And what comes to mind when you say that is two to my mind is that two things you told once on your webinar. Because, and I'm saying that because when you start to talk like that, it can, and as we also talk about, it's like, is this ungrounded? Where am I? Am I floaty? Whatever, right?
Right.
And you're not. It's more like arising. And you said when you talked about a guy, and I don't know if he's still alive or he's actually been alive. No, I don't think he's alive yet. But it was this guy who took the rainbow body, I think. But
Mm.
he was also present physically. No, I don't know if he actually took the rainbow body, but he was close.
Oh, Ramalinga, I think you may be
Yeah,
talking.
where he could be
Mm.
so present and so there, but still the body was transparent.
Yes,
So
that's
I
Ramalinga.
love to, yeah, because that's like the integration of both groundedness and I don't know what you call it, but
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the potential, right?
yeah. There's a weird, weird element to this. Gets very kind of esoteric, but we'll talk about it for a minute. Just throw these ideas around a little bit. The part of the body that participate in the same way there's a nature, an ultimate nature to the body that is Buddha nature already, the Tao, whatever we want to call it. And that's everything is that, whether it's a positive or negative trait, whether it's, suffering or happiness, whether it's good or evil, whatever concepts or relative
Yeah, yeah.
experiences, it's all part of that ground reality. It's that ground reality doesn't reject anything. And it's sort of like the clay you were using. Everything's made out of this clay, and the clay itself is the mystery. You'll and when you and it seems like there's nothing there if you can't really name it or conceptualize it. What is it? Well, it's something. It's
Yeah.
just that you can't nail it down, but you can directly
Yeah.
connect to it and realize that it's a fundamental nature. And to do that is remarkably liberating and peaceful and blissful, and it's very satisfying mysteriously, even though you can't put into words why, because that's its nature. You can't
And
explain
it's
it.
what we are longing
It's
for, and
just
it's the
reality.
human
Yeah.
potential, right?
Yeah. So, in a sense, you could say that part of the body really doesn't understand that. It's made out of a consciousness and energy and form that, just like everybody else and everything else, doesn't understand that. It is made of that. It just doesn't realize it. So, as the body awakens, part of the body is already partially awakened because the Holy Spirit is in there co-creating it, and that part of the body is very advanced. It's not fully in that state, but it's very close to it. And then, but as as the soul and body awaken into non-dual consciousness, a lot of the very consciousness, matter, energy that the body's made out of will actually get transformed and illuminated and liberated into that realization, because it's not just consciousness that wakes up, it's matter that wakes up. Matter is
Yeah,
just
yeah.
interconnected with consciousness. There's no real separation. So embodied enlightenment will transform the body so deeply that it'll start to take on more, not only act in ways that we normally, relate to enlightenment and so on, but the vibration itself of the matter will get so fine, get so realized that eventually it'll go into stages where people that aren't in that state where they understand what deep enlightenment is, they'll start to not be able to see the body. It's actually there. It's something, some in Tibetan traditions they call it the rainbow body. It's
Yeah.
a body of light. It's not just an astral body though, like the next plane. It's an illuminated
It's
body. It's another
the
kind
whole
of body.
body. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a body that's not different than the realization of non-dualism or radical realization of the interconnectedness of all of life. It's literally a body made of that realization.
Mm.
And it's a substance. It's just not a substance that this realm that we live in doesn't have a lot of that wisdom. So we're not, our bodies currently aren't made of consciousness and senses and things that can see those bodies. So when they enter that state, they'll eventually just disappear from this realm. They're actually not anywhere else. They didn't go.
But he didn't disappear, didn't he?
Well, he went through stages. He got into an intermediate stage that were for about 2 years. His body
Oh,
became so close to that realization that you could still see him clearly as if he was an ordinary person, but you couldn't feel him. You couldn't touch him.
yeah. And that was his student. They could see him, but they couldn't
Hmm.
feel him, right?
Yep. Yes.
And he found that very normal. So it was not like,
Yeah.
ooh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For
That's
him, it
what
was
I
just,
mean. It's really grounded. This is, even though it can sound weird for the mind, it's still the most
right.
normal state
Yes.
of it,
Yes.
right?
And
And you
it doesn't
also
stop.
talk,
No, go
sorry,
ahead.
yeah, you also talked about Daedalus. One day he was painting the walls while there were no lights on.
Yeah. I was actually painting pictures. I mean,
Oh
painting.
yeah, so it was not
He
just
was in
painting the
his
wall. It
art
was like,
studio
yeah,
painting because
yes,
he'd been a
yeah,
painter in other lives as well. And he was painting. And then there was a blackout, but since he could see the illumined nature, the subtle astral nature of everything around him, he could just keep painting because he could see all the details very clearly.
yeah. And what I'm sort of for some reason I would just want to emphasize that he could still function in the physical world, like
That's right.
right, very specific.
Hmm.
And so the experience of illumination and ground and the Holy Spirit is truly here. And of course, we can
Hmm.
have and will have states that are not grounded, that are trauma that makes us ungrounded and so on. But the real deal is not ungrounded
Yes.
at all. On the
In,
contrary.
in, in fact, I would definitely support the viewpoint that grounded enlightenment in the body actually makes the body and personality, the incarnate being, more functional, more
Yeah,
fully
that's what I
present.
want to sort of hone out here. It's more functional.
Yes. So their
Which
ability,
we for some reason haven't. I seldomly hear that. That's why I mean, one of the many reasons I love your teachings, because we don't. I haven't. I don't. I say we. I don't know why, but I haven't heard it. So that's we, all of us, right? And I haven't read about it, and so I know it's
yeah.
out there. You can buy it and so on, but it's still somewhat new. From it's
Yeah. And in fact, the funny thing is too, is that even in traditions where they don't talk about embodiment as much in the normal sense, they still kind of sometimes instinctually have the wisdom to know that that's the way, even if their
mm,
philosophy doesn't articulate it.
mm.
So some of the most grounded people I've ever met didn't really talk this way, but they still embodied it. And an example of that is of a master named Darshan Singh that I've mentioned before, who I personally met on a few occasions and who I was initiated by into a specific path. And that path didn't really judge the body heavenly, but they weren't that into it either. And they focused on a path that led to a withdrawal of your consciousness to meditation. So you eventually would go out of your body and travel through different worlds. But they also taught, and this is the way they integrated it, they taught a life of just fulfilling your ordinary like life tasks, have a job or be married. They didn't teach being a renunciate, they didn't teach like spending all of your time in they taught like have a job, be married. You don't have to, but there's nothing. This master himself was married, had children, worked in the Indian government as his job, and also helped his own master with his service. So there was thousands of people around a lot at the ashrams and things, and he was able to do that extremely efficiently. So
Yeah.
he was accomplishing enormous amount of activity in his life. And so his job in the Indian government, he was a deputy secretary in the Indian government in Delhi. And they said that when he finally retired in his 60s to dedicate his time to teaching full time, they had to hire at least two people to get the work done that he was
Yeah.
doing because he was so efficient. In
Yes.
fact, not only that, but he would usually get it done by about noon.
Yeah.
And then he would dedicate the afternoon. He would just hang out in his office because he was a sage and he didn't advertise anything, but people just knew he was wiser. So a lot of the people
Yeah.
that worked there would come to him
Oh,
for counseling and things during the rest. So he would just hang out and counsel people for half the day. And then during the first half of the day, he would accomplish two people's worth of, well, even more than that because he was doing it in such a short amount of time. So his concentration and presence and freedom from issues and struggles and tension caused him when he was embodied to just, his body didn't need much sleep. He slept for about an hour a day because he was so stress free that his body was just in a state of
yes.
abundant vitality and health
Yes.
and right. So that's what can happen. Yes, there's really exotic things like rainbow bodies, but even in a more lived way for ordinary, day-to-day life, uh, deeply embodied enlightenment can bring about a great transformation in the functioning of the body and its potential. It's like you're bringing out the body's ability to function at these higher levels. It's not just an obstacle on the path, as some would
No,
claim. It's actually a
the
partner.
contrary.
It can be looked at from a number of points. And yes, there's parts of the body that participate in states that need to be healed and transformed. But it also has the potential to be like a great partner and to fully participate in enlightened states in a
Yeah,
very
that's beautiful.
profound way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that was important to sort of, because the spiritual, sometimes we have spiritual awakenings that can feel ungrounded, and we think that we are going back to that instead of sort of integrated it in everyday life and so on. It's like, oh, I need to go back to that. That was great, right? But
Mhm.
and so on. So I just wanted to bring that out.
Yep, absolutely.
So what about the time now?
What time is it?
No, it's more like how far are we? When did we start? A quarter to?
Oh yes. What are two?
In your calculation, how?
It's like we're about an hour and 40 minutes or so,
Okay.
roughly.
So maybe we could say, is there something we have forgot? Or if I have a question or two, or can we
How
come?
about this? What if I just take a moment to overview
Yes,
these four dimensions?
yes. And
So,
I'll see if I can shut up.
oh, it's been great. It's good to have a
Yeah,
dialogue.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so I'm going to put them in a different order because I like putting them in this order. The ground nature of the body is it's already perfect. It's like its ultimate nature is not different than the ultimate nature of everything else. It is part of the mystery, part of the Tao, part of the universal reality that is just the pristine ground of being.
Mm.
But because of our entanglements, because of just the way the universe works, layers get built up over things. So another part of the body is a part that's sort of caught up in the drama of everything, the suffering, the confusion, the the rigidities, and all the craziness that all of us do, and all kinds of beings, and all the sad, suffering beings in the universe. So part of the body is part of that too. So those are the almost like the two extreme poles. Is there's a ground nature of the reality of the body that it's Buddha nature now and always has been. And then there's the level of the body that just deeply doesn't understand that, right down into the little cells and things and the instinctual nature of the body. Uh, and then there's a layer of the body that is nurtured by nature intelligences, super intelligences that are helping to make the body come into being. And because they so intimately work with the body, they really are part of the body's nature. And most people just aren't aware of them. In a sense, you could almost say a type of spiritual path could be to just recognize them and learn to come into harmony with them, because that will get you 90% of the way to enlightenment just doing that. You'll be
Mm,
much freer of suffering. You'll be much wiser.
mm.
It kind of make you into like an angel. They're angels, so you could just kind of transform your body into angel consciousness by
I love that.
harmonizing. But you can
I can be
embody
an
it.
angel again. Yes.
Yes, yes.
New way though.
So there's that part, and then there's a a final part. I'm putting them just in random order that I just called the enlightened dimension of the body, and that's the body's um, potential to fully like resonate with and express and understand enlightenment. And the two major kinds of enlightenment are what I just referred to in various ways, but one is soul wisdom, soul enlightenment, and non-dual or mystical enlightenment. The soul is more like understanding the value of qualities, for instance,
Mm,
understanding deeper truths like that as being as soulful beings we reincarnate, and so even some of the reason that we're experiencing some of the things we do today are the result of previous incarnations, and so the wisdom that can intuit the reality that feels I think that's true, or maybe even have direct experiences that that's true. That's all part of this realm of soul wisdom, but especially the wisdom about just how to live a kind of more accepting, more contented, more loving, more wise incarnation. Just our little growth in those things. That's part of our grounded soul enlightenment, and that will blossom into a non-dual enlightenment. That one way to put that is that we realize our radical interrelationship with all life. We deeply, intuitively participate in that. And the body can participate in that too. It has the potential
mm,
to fully resonate with that. And so it's not just something that's kind of a two-story building where one part gets it and then the body is still in its lower
mm.
state. And no, it can be brought deeply into participating in that realization. So those are the four,
Mm,
the radical non-dual nature of the body already.
mm.
Part of the difference between one of the the mystical dimension of the body and the enlightened dimension of the body is the mystical dimension is already Buddha nature. It's already the Tao. But the enlightened part of the body is the part that realizes that that's true. The other
Mm.
parts, other dimensions of the body exist in states where they don't get its own nature. That's the basic problem
And
of
the
our,
basic learning ground, right?
yes,
Like
yes,
so it's a weird concept and a good concept because in a way it has to be there so that learning is taking place.
yes,
That feels almost like a gift,
yeah, yeah.
like a
And
beautiful
it, and,
gift.
and if
I'll
and in
just
fact
stay in this suffering all the time.
yes. And the thing about it is that there's a part of our nature, like our soul, that when it's not an incarnation, it can it can just sort of feel like it's somewhat content because it can kind of go to a sort of semi-heaven realm in between lives and just be content and complacent and being in a body kind of wakes it up to realizing, oh, unless I can really harmonize with this body and learn all the lessons and live a life of harmony and love and contentment, then I'm still learning. And so I might in between incarnations feel kind of like, oh, it's not bad here. I'm kind of a heavenly realm and it's blissful and it's not the final enlightenment. And being an incarnation is very awakening and challenging and educational and to the soul even.
Mm.
So the body is very, very important to our overall experience as human beings. It provides a number of different It's like a mirror that reflects back to us our nature.
Yeah.
And if we just look into the mirror intently, all these doorways open. And ultimately, we realize that the nature is made of the same substance as we are
Yeah.
in that
Beautiful.
state. Yeah.
And everything is made of that. So if we just make it sort of, it's like, as I said the other day, was like the lamp, the chair,
Mhm.
the emotional body, the mental body, and so on, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. One way
So
to
the
look at that.
body, so awakening the body is like, if we need to sort of do that, it's both the all the wisdom and the reflection back, and seeing holy, feeling holy nature and intelligences, and also oh, I tend to say so many things that I forget what I wanted to say. Yeah, oh yeah.
No, I
And also everyday
mhm.
life. So it's not just
Mm,
like the body, the flesh, and it's also
yes.
the everyday life embodying. We talked about everyday spirituality, Johnny and I, the other day, just to have sort of a frame, and there was this feeling coming up in me, like this is about the body and maintaining the body and knowing what the body is, and really and having a home, not just like a modern home, something, or a tent in the forest, but just this maintenance. There was something about maintenance and sustaining that really brought out skills for the soul, right? So it's
Hmm.
also that, I'm
Hmm.
incarnating here in this realm, and it's
Hmm.
real, and I need to interact with that. I need to bathe, or I need to whatever, brush my teeth, and all
Hmm.
that. Just this high level of maintenance, right? That really
Yes.
brings out deep skills, and yes,
Mm,
I just felt that too, that it's that too, right? Would you
absolutely.
say that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And Mark, I was thinking, so I'm doing these four modules. I just to have a frame, I said one
Hmm.
month for every module, and the module are the four modules that you have in the handout that I have uh, brought to the table to this course. And I'll just do so. What I'm asking is a simple way to approach these is these, like, I do a couple of hours for each module, like each dimension. So in one
Hmm.
way, the dimension doesn't show up like just this and this and this. It can, I know, but they're interwoven, right?
Mm,
So we would just sit with the body and maybe have the invitation of that module, but and whatever, but it can come up. All the modules can come up. So in one way, the most simple way to do the course. It's not that I don't know how to do the course, just that now you're here,
mhm.
right? So
Yes.
just sitting with the body, feeling with the body. That's what I've been doing the last couple of weeks, and it's been, mind blowing.
Mm.
So just doing that would.
Hmm.
Right, because also we are not interacting physically. It's online, so we can do that, and it's
Right.
being present with the body, feeling into the body in different ways, right? Wouldn't you say
Right.
that that was a way to go with it,
Hmm.
or do you
Hmm.
have any suggestions?
You mean in terms of specific practices?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Because this is
Uh,
very simple, even though it's profound and it can be
mhm.
not simple, it's still,
Yeah.
doable.
Hmm.
Hmm?
Yeah. Foundationally, I love the idea of just being with the body and
Yeah,
practicing, kind of showing up, um, and and accepting the experience of the body. I think it sounds very easy to say in words, but I feel like it's very actually somewhat challenging for us as human beings to
yeah, yeah,
just
yeah, yeah. Oh,
to sort of show up to our physical life and our experience of
yeah,
having a body. I mean, even just things like aging. As we
yeah,
age as human beings, we have to we see old age coming. We see death
yeah.
eventually coming. This is inherent in experience of
Yeah,
incarnation, and obviously traditionally people have issues with that kind of thing, and
Yeah.
they go, oh, they become sad that their life might be ending, or they might feel the opposite reaction, feel a sense of relief,
Yeah.
depending on how their life's been going.
Yes.
That, there's all
Mostly
kinds
it's
of
the
stuff.
first.
All
Yeah.
of that's part of the learning experience, and showing up for that,
Yes.
navigating all of that, gaining more
Oh yeah, yeah.
composure.
So in a way, it's like just pick one from the shell, Linda. Like this,
Mhm.
like just sit with it, right? Yeah,
That's right.
and it will show up. Yeah, I feel that.
That's right.
Sorry, I
Yeah.
just interrupted, but I just felt
No, it's
that
fine.
like
That's
there's so
fine.
many things to sit with, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes,
So being with
I
the
love it.
body, which is really kind of like a doorway to life, microcosm, macrocosm. Our body can be looked at as like a microcosm, and in the
Yeah, I
kind of
feel that.
traditional ideas of the microcosm, it's sort of like the microcosm is a mirror of the macrocosm. So, some will even go as, Kabbalistic sayings and things like that will say, if you want to know God, know yourself. You're the microcosm. Well, what is one of
Yeah,
the basic foundational experiences of our own nature? Our body. So I
yeah,
view the body as like a form of a our human microcosm reflected in
yeah,
the physical world. So we can learn everything about the universe that we need to know
yeah.
by getting to know our bodies. And
It's like walking around in the
Mm.
curriculum. Like you can't even
Mhm.
escape it, right?
That's right.
That's so
Yes. So you
sweet.
can just generally show up and be with the body. And I think it's very important to at least have a feeling of acceptance and equanimity towards the body, and neither judging nor hanging on too tight nor pushing it away, not liking this experience or this part. It can be anything about the body.
Yes.
Or one can also zoom in on particular parts of that. For instance, we talked about the holy spiritual or a super intelligence. Something as simple as like following the breath. One
Yes.
can follow the breath and realize there is vitality in that, and that vitality in part comes from these beings. So if you attune to it, you can sort of feel a sensation of I'm breathing, or my body's breathing, or also who's breathing, like what
Yeah.
else is
Also.
what
Yeah.
else is
Yeah.
in this breath,
Exactly. Yeah.
you know? And there is that they're, in a sense, they're there for that. Everything that's happening in the body, they're participating in. So you can kind of tweak the meditation towards sort of sensing that, or imagining it, or evoking it somehow. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a course of a lifetime or 10.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
It's really
I'm
just a
hearing
way
I'm
of,
hearing what you're saying and the freedom in it, and I just want to
Mhm.
hear you say it. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I would
really important.
literally say that the body is such a profound part of our human nature that one could use the body to, if you understand the true nature of the body, to describe the whole path. The whole path can be seen and experienced through the lens of
Yes.
the body.
Beautiful.
Mm.
Beautiful. Yeah. It's very
Hmm.
beautiful. Thank you, Mark. Do you think there is more that we need to say?
That feels good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big chunk.
Yes, it
And
was.
I
And
appreciate the opportunity because of, we talked about this in other contexts before, like the webinars, but I think in some ways this was the most concentrated
yes,
discussion
yes.
that
So
that
it's,
I've had.
yeah, and it's not that there's some part of this I haven't heard before,
Mm,
but there's also many parts of, as you said, I was like over there and over
mm,
there. So this is really packed in a good way here. So the most
great.
concentrated way.
Mm,
Yeah, I feel that too.
great.
So I'll just say thank you, Mark, and then I'll close this one down and we can just wrap it
Okay,
up
you're welcome.
afterwards.
I
Yeah,
appreciate
and
the opportunity.
yeah, I appreciate it too.
Mm,
I mean, this is amazing. So I'll
great.
just press stop and we'll just talk
Okay,
afterwards, right?
sounds good.
Oh, let me see.